Right now it's about 25 degrees outside, which means we've got a little layer of frost on top of the ground. I'm hoping that this is our last frost of the season, mainly because I want to move on to planting. There is a little bit of a downside because I do have more tile holes to fix, and that is what we're going to try and knock out today. By today, I really mean within the next hour, an hour and a half. The high today is almost 40 degrees. The sun's already shining this morning, meaning that we're gonna lose this frost very quickly. To expedite the process, I called Chris, had him start the backhoe, start gathering some tile repair supplies. Unfortunately, some of us don't think that far ahead. I've got to stop and get some road diesel real quick, or we're gonna run out here this morning. Hey Jess, you guarding the fuel tank this morning? You're an old dog. Cat update. They're still afraid of me. No, maybe not. Yeah, definitely still afraid of me. Hate to be a mouse that stumbled into this place. What are you doing down there? I'd love to stay and chat, but literally every second I waste is another second I have less to work on these tile holes. Anyone want to guess whether or not it shuts off? Nope. That's what happens when it's frozen. Got a new object obstructing us. That's Dad's new long trailer for the folding corn head. Probably not going to transport it much on that. On odd occasion, we will take it far away as opposed to putting it on the combine. And of course, we'll leave the corn head unfolded for winter storage on this trailer. I don't know what size tile we're going to need, so we're just going to bring it all. All right, a few different selections of tile in the bed of the truck. We're ready to rock and roll down the road. And to be completely honest with you all, it'll be a miracle if we get more than one tile hole fixed, because this is going to soften up really quickly. We do have a tile contractor out working on some other holes as well. Hopefully we get a lot knocked off so I don't find them with the Hagee here this spring or summer. Imagine hitting a big old tile hole with the John Deere High Cycle 6000 spraying. You'd probably be out the front windshield, especially if it was the front tire. This old case backhoe is capable of many things. Driving fast is not one of them, or being that smooth. Backhoes are like the Swiss Army knife of equipment. They can do a lot, they're just not great at everything. It would have paid off to be forward thinkers in this instance, just because I could have just left the backhoe down here on Friday or Saturday and cut out 20 plus minutes of road travel. All of the holes that we're going to try and fix are within this vicinity, and I kid you not when I said that it will be a miracle if we at least get one done. It appears that the frost is already starting to come out of the ground, which may lead this project in poorly. Hopefully we got a tow strap in the pickup truck, because it's the most likely to get stuck. Okay, most of you all know the drill. Old clay tiles out in our field that break down from age, heavy traffic over the top, and a variety of other factors, ground shifting possibly. They create small or large holes depending on the diameter of that tile. We have to fix them. Most of the time it's just a quick patch job. Other times we have to run a small stretch of new replacement plastic tile. That's the modern day equivalent of old tile, is plastic perforated pipe. It's much more reliable long term. I've got one right here, maybe the only one I get fixed, but I'm gonna go ahead and dig into it, see what we're working with, and try to get it done before everything gets stuck. Thought this was going to be an easy fix. Seeing the old tree roots and trees down in the bottom of this makes that not the case. Swirling a little bit, but I think it is trying to go out to the southwest. Probably a really old clay tile in there somewhere, and then it runs across to that corner. But once upon a time, this ditch right here was full of big trees. And when I say once upon a time, I mean a long time ago. So these are old tree roots, and we got a mess on our hands. I'm gonna go ahead and just dig a little bit more out on the north and south side. Hopefully I have enough tile on hand to fix this. If not, we're just gonna have an open hole here until the next time we can get out in the field. I've been digging around in this for another 5 minutes or so. I've yet to locate any tile at all. All I pulled out is more tree roots or even possibly old trees. gonna call my dad and see if maybe once upon a time there was trees buried here, because surely by now I'd be finding a tile if there was a tile in here. Without a doubt, I am in a tree graveyard right now. That's not to say that once upon a time there was not a tile in here and it's seeping somewhere underneath, because I do see little crumbles of tile. The issue though is that if there's an old tile under here, it was probably here before these trees were buried, meaning that it's not even going to be worth saving. And all I've really done here is just create an absolute nightmarish mess, because I pulled out a bunch of wood that should probably be 3+ foot in the ground. What I've got a bite on right now was once upon a time a very large tree. That is not a tree root. That is part of an old tree. Who knows how long that's been in the ground? Probably longer than I've been alive. There's pretty much only one thing I can do now. Try and put the trees back on the bottom and just fill the hole in. I think I've opened up a whole new can of worms moving forward. Though it does look like someone could have done us a favor and buried these trees a little deeper. Ah, the old clay tiles. The gift that keep on giving. Especially when you're the guy who has to fix them all. Now that I think about it, I'm not concerned about how I backfill this, because I didn't just repair a tile in there. So let's just push this dirt back. Oh, we would have been so much better off just leaving that one alone. That's not going to settle very well. If anything, it's going to be a liability here in another couple weeks. Would you look at that? Even sometimes I amaze myself. We're moving to our second hole for repair. Although that first one may not count as anything, because it was literally a failed job. I'm much more confident in the one we're going to. It should be a simple fix. Should be, because the last one should have been too. You know how it goes, everyone. Looks like we are blessed with a little bit longer of a frost than I was expecting. I was able to cross the waterway and move to the north side of this farm. Chris is going all the way around on the road. Alrighty, I'm gonna get this one dug out real quick and report back to you. Looks like about a 5-inch clay. Much more standard fix here, just a breakdown in the middle. My dad must have been bored, because he showed up to help with the tile repairs this morning. 63.5 inches. Did most of the work on that one, but that's number 2 done. That one's nice and cleaned up. We're gonna zip down the road and see if we can fix one more. This is going better than I'd anticipated. The countdown has started, ladies and gentlemen. This ground's gonna be soft pretty quickly. I dug up 2 more tile holes right next to each other on the same old clay line. Classic instance of, if it wasn't broken, it definitely is now, because I grabbed it with the hoe. Looks like they're both in good shape, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pull the pieces out, put a new one in, and be done. Come on. Like the work of Picasso himself. Some mornings you get less done than you planned on. Other mornings you get more done than you'd anticipated. Today, we somehow managed to get even more done. Fixed 3.5 tile holes, depending on how you grade that first one. I guess we should be appreciative of Mother Nature for not thawing the ground out quite yet on us. Even though the ground is thawed out quite a bit, I'm going to do one last project before I leave the field I'm in right now, where we just fixed those 2 other tile holes. We've got a little bit of a wash or a gully forming here on the embankment going into a drainage ditch. You can see that a lot of our dirt here just broke its way through and settled in the drainage ditch. So I'm just going to grab a bunch of this, pull it up, build this berm back, and hopefully prevent this wash from worsening at all. I played around in the mud for probably 25 to 30 minutes. I dug out a handful of buckets. I patted it down a little bit to kind of tampen it. Really should hold unless we get another 4 or 5 inch rain, and it'll blow right through it. If not through the spot that I just thickened up, you'll just go down the other way on the elevation a little bit and just create a new wash over there. The unfortunate part about fixing something like this is that it occurs because there is a problem somewhere. We got a lot of water running off of the farm right there. You can actually see the path where the water runs coming out here. We may be doing the best in terms of stewardship. However, it is going to be at the cost out of yield, because if that water sits on our corn this season, well, it's going to cause yield loss. So there is a give and a take, but we want to do our best to prevent any kind of unnecessary surface water runoff and erosion. That wasn't my brightest idea. I tried to come out here and smooth off some of the wash that I just stacked this wet mud on with the backhoe, blade it backwards, and I just buried this thing. I'm actually somewhat surprised that it's stuck right here, because the back tires are on solid ground. The front, though, is definitely in the mud. It's probably just holding me down, so I can most likely use the hoe and just grab a bite and pull out of it. Give me a break, everyone. It is Monday morning. You can't really expect much out of me. I had to use the hoe to grab it a little bit, and then once I got out of the lowest spot, I put the bucket down into the mud to kind of lift the front end up, and left the hoe extended to kind of create a backwards lean on it. Threw it out in reverse, it popped right out. Really, my own fault completely. Not stuck that bad, and I'm going to tell you from experience, although I don't have any proof to show you, it is very hard to get a backhoe stuck, like permanently stuck. That was just in a bind right there. I probably shouldn't have tried doing what I did. Lesson learned. But I have done things with this backhoe that would probably make some of you sick in terms of digging out of mud holes. You can literally just put your hoe down and just dig and dig. It's almost like a boat out in the water. You just row your way out of the mud. It's terrible to see, but sometimes you get in that kind of situation. And don't judge me, I'm sure some of you have done that before. As you can clearly see, I just sank into that muddy mess I created trying to get over to grade it backwards. My mistake. I'm just gonna go ahead and leave before I make any more of a mess here. My apologies, I kind of just ghosted you all yesterday afternoon. You didn't really miss a whole lot. I violently pulled some trees out of the ditch with the backhoe, and Dad and I had a few meetings in the afternoon. Nothing really worth filming. Today though, we're back in the barn to do some more planter stuff. And no, we're not going to plant. The ground may be getting close to dry again, though there is more rain in the forecast, so I'm not going to start daydreaming anytime soon. At some point later in the video, I'll kind of talk about the current forecasts for April and go over my thoughts and opinions on them, for whatever that's worth. As far as I'm aware, we have one item on the DB60 and 8R370 that needs addressed. Nothing too pressing going on there. And a couple of things on the ExactEmerge planter that needs addressed. Mainly some deferred maintenance on the generator. Probably should have done that earlier than I did. It's easier to do that stuff before you hook everything up, but I didn't really read the manual. My dad informed me that the generator on the ExactEmerge planter has some oil in it beyond just the grease that I thought was annual. I guess I would know that if I read the manual from front to back, which I haven't. So we're gonna go ahead and pop that generator off at some point, change that oil, and we need to put the remaining copperhead spiked closing wheels on the 12 rows that only have singles. It's not like these closing wheels are a do or die project. We could plant just fine how we're set up. We've got 12 rows though that have one, the rest have 2 on each. We figured for the sake of simplicity, we might as well just put them on. It's not like it's that hard to work. Besides, when we're planting in the mud in late May, we like that good zipper action in the trench to get that corn nice and sealed up, so hopefully it comes up. You see what I did right there? I like to joke about planting corn in late May so it doesn't happen. Hopefully we're planting corn in the beginning of April. You just never really know what the future holds when it comes to the weather. Who knows? Could be planting in June. Hopefully that doesn't happen either. We've got our fingers crossed for early April. Let's just hope and pray that happens. Here's our box of trinkets. Should be 12 of them in here. I'm gonna go out to my truck, get some tools, and get started on popping these things off. Pretty simple, although laborious work. Putting the closing edge onto the actual wheel assembly is a little bit more cumbersome, but then once you have that done, it's not that hard to reattach them.
Now what do we do?
Put a cheater bar on it. We already had this all hooked up, but we took it off because we realized we're supposed to be changing the oil in the generator, which is separate from the actual greasing.
Here, hold the wrench. Pull easy. Quit. Quit.
Oh, quit? I thought you said quick.
A little tapping. Oh, gosh dang it.
Here, hold on a second. Let me blow that out.
Okay, he's gonna come this way.
It had oil. That's good news.
Probably about done, isn't it? Do I need to turn it or anything, or is that on the bottom? It's on the bottom, isn't it?
I think so.
Done?
Yeah, I'd say. Well, so much for my brand new squeaky clean manual. Dump oil on it. Yeah, happens.
It'll bubble up, I'm sure.
Don't hit that sensor. We already replaced it once. 17 ounces of fresh high guard in here. It's ready to be put back on. Oh man, this thing is really light. Man, that thing never gets any lighter. Dad's gonna run into the John Deere dealership and get a replacement bolt for the one that's not really wanting to thread in very easy. So this project's pretty much done, other than plugging it back in. You've already seen me do that one time, so I won't bore you with it again. I'm gonna head back over and work on those closing wheels some more. Seeing as both of our planters now run with a significant amount of electrical demand, these generators are pretty important. The tractor cannot supply enough power from the alternator to run the systems on these planters, so keeping those things in operating condition is pretty important. I've told you guys a few times, a couple years back, we didn't realize you were supposed to be greasing the splines inside the generator, and our generator broke down on us, meaning that the corn planter had to stop till we could get the splines fixed. Didn't end up being that expensive of a project, but it did shut us down for over a day while we were running to get that part. It was an easy fix, but the only thing easier than fixing it is just maintaining it properly so it doesn't break on you, because there's really no backups. I can only imagine how much it costs to buy a separate one of these generators to keep on a shelf in case you need it. Fortunately, it does look like both of these planters run on the same generation system. I would not be surprised if we couldn't just pop that generator off and run it on that tractor and run this planter and vice versa, because it seems to be the exact same part. The real moral of the story here is we probably should do a better job reading through the service manuals ahead of time as opposed to after things start breaking down. I'm curious, what do you guys all do? If you buy a new piece of equipment, do you read the manual front to back right out of the gate, or you set it behind your toilet and peek through a few pages every now and then when you're sitting on the porcelain throne? Well, Dad and I were maintaining that generator. Chris and Jeff have gotten these closing wheels almost disassembled. We just have to hit them apart. Had to leave Chris and Jeff for a second. I think they can figure that project out. I got called to something more important. The pipeline people have finally showed up to our farm here to locate their lines. I talked in a previous video about how the pipeline was only 15 inches or so, I can't recall, of cover over a 30-inch high pressure natural gas line. So I'm gonna hop in the gate and run out and talk to them. Our concern isn't necessarily the waterway and rebuilding it. More specifically, it's that if there's washes out in that field and the pipeline is under it, how much cover is there there? Is there a possibility that if we were to run our inline ripper or even our chisel plows, could we catch that line with our chisel plows? Folks, a residential line could probably kill you if you hit it the wrong way. A 30-inch natural gas line could literally erase you from this earth. That's how much pressure and gas and explosive activity is really under there. Shouldn't be a problem 99,000 out of 100,000 times, but on the off chance that something were to go awry, that is the last thing I'd want to hit. We're concerned that it's a little bit wet still for the pickup, so I'm gonna hop in the Gator again, assuming it doesn't have a flat tire or a dead battery. I'm gonna hop in our nice clean Gator and see what this gentleman has to say about the future of those lines and our tillage operations. Thought it was dead. Just didn't drive for some reason. There we go. I just got done talking with the technician from the 3 separate pipelines that run in parallel through here. The good news is that all of the washes I was concerned about out on our field are actually offset quite a ways from the path of the pipeline. In the field itself, we have anywhere from 40 to 50 inches of cover. Of course, there's room for that to go down or even up depending on how much erosion we have, so we want to keep an eye on that. But overall, we don't need to be concerned out in the field. However, we do still have the very glaring issue of trying to clean out and or reshape this waterway, because one of the pipelines of the 3 spurs off and goes across here, because once upon a time there was a house on the corner of this farm right here where my dad and his brothers grew up initially. It's long since been torn down, so they went around with 2 pipelines to the west. The other one crosses this old waterway slash ditch, goes to the east, and then they join back up on up to the north. The technician probed this and re-verified the depths across the bottom. Right here we're looking at close to 2 foot, which isn't really that concerning, although 2 foot is about the minimum standard they like to see of cover over their pipelines. And then in the bottom where this really bad wash is, we're looking at 18 inches or so. I said 15 earlier, I couldn't recall correctly. It was 18 inches. So that does present a pretty big issue for trying to reshape this. We'll have to take special considerations to go across here. One of them is probably not using a dozer for this section, along with their extra 20 to 30 foot of right-of-way on both sides for safety. This line in particular, like I said, is a 30-inch line. He said it's running at 800 PSI, and if on the off chance they ran a dozer across here and one of the edges dug in a little too far, there would be a giant hole here. We don't want that to happen. He said that there is a possibility that you could manually scoop it across with a toothless backhoe bucket, assuming that the pipeline engineers approve of that, which is kind of a shot in the dark. You never know what they're going to think. Other than that, he did say that past their right-of-way on both sides, we could actually drop a bulldozer in and doze that out, and then come to the south and doze that out as well, which would gain us a lot because actually more of our issue is downstream. Overall though, this is going to be something that we have to explore a little bit more with our contractor and the pipeline. Alrighty, back to my day job, planter mechanic. Not a good one, but I am one. Oh, you rethreading it?
Yeah, cleaning the thread.
Is that what they suggested?
That works slick.
Well, you haven't put the bolt in yet. I wouldn't get ahead of yourself. If this doesn't work, what's our next option? Bore it out even bigger?
My new generator.
Did you get a new bolt too?
Yeah. Come around on the south side.
Why the south side?
Because that's where you're going to be prying. Well, I guess you wouldn't have to. You can go in there.
I thought I was prying on the back.
No. Come on. Okay, let's pry up a little. Wait a minute.
Did they both thread in pretty easy?
Yep. Okay.
Start on.
You want the number up or down? Oh, God! Darn, that was close.
Wow, that about got your toe. That would hurt.
Wow.
That was really close. I would 100% have been broken.
It's got the spacer in there. You see it?
Yeah, we may have to drive this in.
Maybe we don't need the spacer. Wait a minute.
It's gonna go in if I hit it.
Okay, hit
I
it.
think. Good thing we got this hammered.
Oh,
It's too far, isn't it?
okay, swing it around there. Wait a minute. Okay, now swing it around. One more.
Try to be graceful.
One more.
I mean, you were inches away from a broken toe right there.
I have my steel-toed tennis shoes on.
Yeah, your running shoes. Comfortable. Which one are we starting on?
Back one. Now put the wrench on there and pull. That's enough.
This is the category 4. This is the category 5. Like I said, probably a non-issue, but on the off chance that we want to run the 9620 on this one, we have to have the category 5 hitch because it's got a wider opening. Now, to use the smaller Cat 4 hitch pin on the 9460R, we'll probably have to put on an adapter or a sleeve, because if we don't, it'll kind of wiggle around in there a lot and cause unnecessary wear. So this is kind of a preventative measure just in case we have to switch which tractor the field cultivator's on. Got enough of them reassembled that we can start bolting the wheels back onto the planter, which is what we're gonna do next. Just wave the checkered flag on that project. All 24 rows of the ExactEmerge corn planter have a full set of the Copperhead spiked closing wheels. I don't know if they're going to be a blessing this year, but it doesn't hurt to add them to the back of your planter to give you a little bit of insurance just in case you're planting through some less than ideal conditions. Dad, Chris, and Jeff unloaded a ton of seed back at the seed shed while I ran into town. Allie had a big appointment at the doctor for updates on her pregnancy, so I had to dip off while they took care of that. That's just part of it. Sometimes you gotta miss some of the action for things that are probably more important. We are gonna work on the DB60 planter like I mentioned earlier. I had said that we weren't gonna take the quick hitch off. We have reconsidered our opinion on that matter after talking to a few additional farmers. Just for the sake of simplicity and ease of mind, we are gonna go ahead and take that big category 4 quick hitch off because we don't wanna run the off chance of grabbing that big lift cylinder on the DB60 with that hitch. Shouldn't be too hard to do, but we are gonna make use of the loader because the big quick hitches are too heavy for someone to lift, or at least not easily. I guess that's a pretty good example right there. You can see the quick hitch does get pretty close to that main lift cylinder. short arm to break free. Dad ran off to get some kind of tool. Who knows what his plan is. He's kind of the ringleader here. Either way, this could go very poorly or very well from here on out. I'm hoping that we just get it loose, pick it up, move it out of the way, and it doesn't hurt anything. Or we get it loose and it twists and breaks some hydraulic lines. Oh well. As long as no one gets hurt in the process, I'll consider it a victory. We got it, and no one had to go to the hospital, not even the planter. So I'll consider that a victory. Back inside the shed she goes for another couple weeks. Those cameras look pretty good. I think we'll be pretty happy with those this season. It looks like Dad did some major reorganizing in here while he was unloading that seed. Usually we keep our soybeans here on the east wall, corn on the south wall. We still have a decent amount to come in, but this is a pretty good start for the season. Everything that was delivered today was either DeKalb or Asgrow, which are basically the same company, they just have different trade names. DeKalb has always been some of our better corn. The Bayer genetics are phenomenal. Asgrow beans, we didn't get a ton of them. They're on these DeKalb boxes that are over-labeled with painter's tape, but not a lot of Asgrow beans. Like I said, we had a sour taste in our mouth after last season. We are giving them one more fair shake. We have a 33 XF3. That is all of the Asgrow beans we're planting. Hopefully they're pretty good, although it's going to be hard to compete with these Don Marios. As for DeKalb corn, we are sticking with the tried and true 6465, a newer hybrid 6289, 11135, and then maybe a few other numbers. I'm not exactly sure. Like I said, we've always had phenomenal results out of DeKalb corn. In my opinion, probably one of the strongest brands in the seed industry is DeKalb. I'm not going to talk extensively about our Asgrow beans. You probably heard it a lot, and I'll talk about it more in season when we're actually putting these beans in the ground. What I do want to talk about, though, is the forecast for this spring. We are approaching the last week of March. Typically, our mouth starts watering once that calendar hits April 1st. Our technical insurance plant date, or the first date that we are covered to plant beans and corn both this year, I believe is the 4th or 5th of April. They've moved the beans up, which is tremendous for us that believe in early planted beans for higher yields. Obviously, with that in mind, we are very quickly approaching what we would consider our starting line for soybean and corn planting. It's not out of the realm of possibility for us to plant corn and beans at the end of March. We have done it before. It's just not very likely. When it comes to planting early, the main issue you run into in the early spring is that the temperatures are not warm enough to dry the ground quickly, and we also tend to get large rainfall events. There is a 1.5 to 3 inch rainfall total forecasted over the next 7 days, and the average temperature is not really going to be anything too impressive. 50, maybe 55 degrees over that span, so we're not going to see a ton of drying. Now, that's the advantage of later planting. Once you get into late April and May, statistically, it's going to be warmer, so regardless of the rainfalls you get, the ground is going to dry quicker. One thing we do not believe in the earlier part of the planting season is mudding our crop in. We will not plant in late March or early April unless the ground is fit. Sometimes in early April, the ground is phenomenal. You could almost sleepwalk through planting season. Other times, we just constantly get those rains in a large enough quantity and or with a lack of heat, and we don't get into the field until May. That is why we invest in such large planting equipment. We want high planting throughput, so when the opportunity presents itself, we can kick that door down immediately and put the hammer down. Again, there's some planting seasons where all that planting capacity is a huge benefit. There's other seasons where it really doesn't make that big of a difference because you have all the time in the world. Typically, it's pretty challenging to get a truly accurate forecast beyond the 7 to 10 day period. Like I've just mentioned, they are calling for 1.5 to 3 inches of rain. It's pretty easy to speculate that if we get a big 3-inch rain over the next couple days, it will almost certainly be at least the first week of April before we consider even scratching any dirt. That's just the nature of the beast. Anything can happen beyond that period. I do know that longer-term forecasts are speculating right now that we'll have a cool and wet April. I've heard them say that before, and it turns off hot and dry immediately, which would be great. But
really there's no crystal ball to tell what's going to be really in front of us. Being the optimist that I am, right now I'm penciling in the second week of April to start planting. I really have no basis to stand on with that. I'm just assuming that if we can't plant the first week of April, well, we're going to be able to plant the second week of April. And check back in the second week of April, because I may move it back to the third week and the fourth week and even May, depending on how the weather unfolds. I just try to be as positive as possible. When it comes to maximizing our yield from a statistical long-term standpoint, really April 1st to April 14th are the golden ticket. That is where you have the highest possibility of maximum yields. You can have maximum yields before then or after then if the weather cooperates. It's just that long term, your best bet is that first to second week of April for planting, especially for soybeans. I'm not gonna sit here and complain about the weather one bit, because I know some of you are over in the northwestern Corn Belt and you're dealing with a lot of snow on the ground, probably some thick frost underneath it still. I don't envy you guys. I sure do hope it warms up soon for all of us. That way we can all get our crops in the ground and get off to a great start. With planting season literally being a stone's throw away, I am going to try and pick up the uploads to twice a week as long as I have enough content. So I'm probably gonna cut the videos a little bit shorter. Hopefully I'm able to maintain a consistent schedule. I know some of you don't enjoy the long videos, but a lot of times it just makes more sense logistically for me to produce them that way. Speaking of video production, it is my lovely wife and video editor's birthday today. She turns the big 26. Everyone wish her a happy birthday down in the comments. She's a fantastic mother and wife. Lenny and I are definitely lucky to have her. She most certainly rounds us out well. Anyways, that's gonna be it for me for this video. I'm not really gonna keep you on the hook too long. I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you guys all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!